Izuku couldn't wait to go home. When he had woken up in the hospital he was in a panic. What had happened to him? What had happened to the kids? He had panicked so much that the doctors had to knock him out just to keep him from hurting himself further. Once he had calmed down and been given a little time to recover, he heard from the doctors what had happened to him. He had overworked himself, which caused a myriad of health problems, including extreme exhaustion. And what's worse is that the strain he put on his body had weakened his immune system, meaning he was quite sick. Which made sense because Izuku felt like crap. He could barely move, he felt like he was going to vomit at any moment, pain would randomly course through his body from time to time, he was coughing a lot, fortunately no more blood came out, and he had nasty headaches. In other words, he had abused his body and so now it was abusing him. But none of that mattered at the time, because none of the doctors could tell him what was happening with his children. Fortunately, DOC showed up and explained everything. The kids had called him an ambulance, and after that, they called the pussy cats, as he requested, and they came as quickly as they could. Izuku made a mental note to get them a nice gift for their troubles. DOC said that they would transfer him back to the house soon, with all the hospital equipment he would need, and some doctors would come from the house to check up on him and do whatever they would need to do to make sure Izuku recovered. After that, his mother visited. They had had a tearful reunion, which was pretty much the only way to describe it, as the two basically spent the entire time crying. After her, he expected maybe Ochako to visit, but that was about it. What he had not expected was for his mother, Nizu, All Might, Skinny Form, Ochako, Nami, and Mandalay to visit him, all at once. Oh, hey guys. Izuku coughed, his hoarse voice filled with shock at seeing all these people crowded around him. Midoriya, this is an intervention, Nizu told him. You can't do this job on your own, sweetheart, Inko told him, looking so concerned and worried that it broke Izuku's heart to even look at her. Look at what you've done to yourself, Izuku, you can't do this again. The kids were completely heartbroken when this happened. Mandalay looked so sad. And guilt stabbed into Izuku because he knew why. She was over there with the kids, watching them in their depressed and heartbroken states. And they were all hurting because of him. Young Midoriya, I understand that maybe I'm not the best person to be saying this, but it needs to be said. You can't do everything alone. Everyone needs a support system. All Might, for a reason Izuku couldn't comprehend, looked guilty. Like he was personally responsible for what happened to Izuku. And that made Izuku feel guilty in return. And we've been telling you this for months. Ochako didn't yell, but you could still clearly hear the frustration in her voice, which was also made evident by her expression. Listen to Kid. Think about how badly it would affect the kids if you died. Nami told him. It was pretty obvious that she was just here to make sure Izuku didn't get himself in this situation again, because that would be really bad for her. I'm sorry. Izuku teared up. It was now that the weight of his failure was really pressing down on him. He'd hurt his kids by not hiring help. He'd been hurting his kids because they had to watch someone they cared for fall apart. I'm sorry. I failed. He could hear his old childhood tormentors now. Failure. Can't do anything. Useless Deku. Mr. Midoriya. Izuku was shaken out of his traumatic flashback by the feeling of something soft touching his arm. Nizo took the time to get a stool and stood on it so that way he could put his paw on Izuku's arm. Mr. Midoriya, we understand why you did what you did. People treated you harshly for most of your life. So then in turn to ask you to trust them with your children, who have also been treated poorly by the people around them, is asking quite a lot. It's scary, but it's necessary. Young Midoriya, it's not that you failed. You simply made a mistake. All Might told him gently. Which is fine. Everyone makes mistakes. What's important is that we learn from them, not wallow in them. Dude, it's not you. No one without some sort of infinite stamina quirk could do what you were trying to do, and not collapse. Nami told him. Heck, I don't think anyone without a stamina quirk could do what you were doing for half as long. Seriously dude, how the fuck did you do all that work for so long? Pixie Bob asked the same thing, Mandalay added. They had only been doing some of Izuku's work, split among 4 people and with some of the kids helping, and the blonde member of the Pussycats' first question was how in the actual hell Izuku could do everything he did and not die. Before making some very inappropriate comments about Izuku's bedroom durability in his more mature years. What we're trying to say is, don't despair. You're not dead, your children will eventually return to their happier selves. Let us focus on the positives, and do what we need to do to improve. Nizu explained to him. Izuku took a second to think. They were right. He was still alive. He was still in charge of these kids. Just sitting here crying about what he did wrong won't fix it. You're right. I need to. He wanted to say get back to work, but the pain, soreness, and overall numbness of his body reminded him that that would only result in making the situation worse. As much as he hated it, he needed to take some time to recover. But he also needed to help the kids now more than ever. And what about his work for the QRD? Seeing Izuku's internal conflict and confusion, Nizu decided now was the time to strike. Mr. Midoriya, I would like to ask your permission for something, Nizu told him, earning a confused look from Izuku. I would like permission for Class 1A, with the exception of Bakugo Katsuki, to take up residency in your home for the next 3 weeks, and work for you. Izuku's eyes widened, and in the back Ochako had the same exposition, not being in on the plan. Wait. Izuku coughed. What do you mean? I don't want to force anyone to work for me. And wouldn't that mean they'd have to stop their hero training for 3 weeks? I can't do that to them. Oh, don't worry about that, Mr. Midoriya. Should you let them use your training room, they can still make significant progress with their quirks, and they will still receive advice and instructions for our staff via the school website. Nizu explained. Still, asking them to juggle schoolwork and work around the house is asking a lot. Izuku retorted. Do remember that these are a total of 19 children. I think they can distribute the work to a very reasonable level. Nizu had prepared for Izuku to try and find reasons to refuse his offer. There was no way Izuku could reasonably say no here. And the others around him would make sure he stayed reasonable. And you don't have to worry about forcing them to work for you. I think many of the students will in fact be eager to help you. Yeah. Ochako ran forward and gave Izuku a determined glare. Everyone adored those kids. And so many of them are even fans of Kiba's channel. I've known them for months and I know all of them wouldn't miss a chance to help you guys out. So please, let us help you. Izuku didn't feel right about this, but maybe that was part of his problem? Alright. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Okay everyone, I have something important to tell you all, Eraserhead said to his class. Do you all remember Midoriya Izuku? Most of his class nodded, although the girls, who already knew what happened to Izuku, just got upset. Except for Ochako, who had a look of fierce determination ever since Izuku agreed to Class 1A helping him. She was gonna help her friend if it was the last thing she did. Well, he collapsed. Aizawa bluntly stated. This yielded the expected reactions from the expected people. The guys just looked shocked and upset about this development. While the girls remained the same, although they winced a bit and a few of them looked towards Ochako. Bakugo's reaction however was interesting. He looked shocked for the first few seconds like everyone else, before looking concerned for approximately half a second, before shifting into his typical angry, I don't care look. The class broke out into just noise, with so many of the students asking questions and saying things. Fortunately, they were silenced by the one student Aizawa was glad was loud. Everyone, quiet down, Ida shouted while doing his standard air chop. We must get our concerns across in an orderly fashion. After a couple minutes everyone quieted down, and Aizawa spoke before anyone else could. Midoriya has been taken to the hospital and will make a full recovery. In fact, he's being transferred back home today. However, it will take him a lot of time before he can get back to work. Aizawa explained. So he can't go through the process of hiring employees at the moment, so that's where you all come in. All of you, except Bakugo, will be living at the Midoriya home and working under him for the next 3 weeks. What? Shouted basically everyone except Bakugo and Ochako. Once again the classroom erupted into pure noise. But this time Aizawa took it upon himself to shut everyone up. Quiet. Aizawa activated his quirk, giving him intimidating red eyes and floating hair. And so everyone promptly closed their mouths and stopped talking. However, one student actually had the guts to raise his hand. Shoto Todoroki. Aizawa sighed and deactivated his quirk. Yes, Todoroki? Why are we being sent in to do this? Shoto asked. Out of everyone he'd reacted the least to the news of Izuku's collapse. He was still a bit shocked when he heard the news and deep down he was a bit concerned for the children under the Green Boy's care, but that didn't mean he wanted to go all the way there and take care of the kids himself. We're hero students, not babysitters. What, and heroes don't help people in need? Ochako glared at Todoroki. Those kids need our help and dash. Uraraka, Aizawa said her name sharply, stopping her in her tracks before he moved on to Shoto. The reason why you are all being sent in to do this is because the list of people Midoriya trusts is small. And most of them are too busy to try this kind of thing. Mrs. Midoriya is available, but she wouldn't be able to do all that work by herself. Fortunately, that list of people includes Uraraka, and she was able to convince him to allow you all to work there. You guys are pretty much the only option. And it might do you all some good to be reminded of why your jobs are important. Who you're working to protect, and why. Because it's incredibly easy for pros to lose track of that. That last sentence actually got Shoto thinking about his father. Was that what happened? He lost track of what it meant to be a hero? That he was supposed to protect? That actually made some sense. And then combined with what Uraraka had said, maybe he should just shut up for now. Also, despite our objections that such things were unnecessary, Midoriya has insisted that you will all be paid handsomely for your time there. Aizawa gave a resigned sigh. Let's just say at least I don't need to plan around any of you getting a part-time job in the future. Who yes, cheered about half the class. Bless you Midoriya. May nothing bad ever happen to you again, Mineta cried. Bakugo, how could you bully such a kind and innocent soul? Mina shouted. Eat shit Pinky. Bakugo replied. Which to be fair, you will be risking your lives with all these extremely dangerous children around, Aizawa said to kill their enthusiasm. Which worked pretty effectively, taking the wind right out of their sails. Oh come on, they're not that dangerous. Ochako tried to reassure them. Yes, they are, Aizawa said, receiving a betrayed glare from Uraraka. As much as I don't approve of DOC and the general public treating them like monsters. They're listed as OPCS for a reason. And while it is important that you treat them like children, you also have to keep in mind that they can accidentally kill you. Which brings me to this. Eraserhead pulled out a remote and pressed a button. Suddenly from behind him, a TV screen slid out of the ceiling and the tired hero stepped aside so everyone could see it. I will be explaining briefly about the quirks of kids you'll be taking care of, Aizawa told them. So pay attention, it's important if you don't want to die. Everyone was intensely focused, even Bakugo. If only because he was curious. Firstly, we have the one that started it all. Eri Midoriya. Aizawa pressed a button, and the screen turned on, showing an image of Eri. Ah! Went most of the girls, as well as Kirishima and Kaminari. So this is Eri, the one whose backstory must not be known, Mina said, before gasping. Are we gonna hear her dash? No. Aizawa cut her off immediately. Her story is so fucking classified that, I don't know it. Heck, even she isn't allowed to fully remember her own past. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about her quirk, rewind. The screen then showed a short video of Eri rewinding an already eaten apple, back into an uneaten apple. It allows her to rewind any organic substance back to a previous state. Whether it's back to a previous state of their lives, or even setting them back in evolution. Meaning she can literally turn you into a monkey, Aizawa said. But that is probably one of the better case scenarios. You see Eri has a hard time controlling her quirk, meaning that more likely than not, when her quirk is active, this happens. The screen then showed a video of Eri making an apple vanish into thin air. Wait, what did she just do? Kaminari asked, confused on how rewinding something made it vanish. Did she rewind it back to a seed? Momo guessed. Close, she rewinded to before it existed, Aizawa said bluntly. She can do this to any living thing, including people. Wait. So if you touch her you die? Mineta shouted out in fear. You just, instantly die. Basically yes, Aizawa said, keeping his blunt tone. Normally I would just tell you to stay away from her when her horn starts glowing, however, you all will also be responsible for helping her train and control her quirk. So you'll have to get close to her while it's on at some point. There were a few audible gulps among the class, and even Uraraka looked just a little bit nervous. Fortunately you will all be provided with a tranquilizer gun, which you should use if she loses control of her quirk, Aizawa explained. Wait! You want us to just shoot a kid? Mina shouted in slight outrage. I mean I know it's a tranq gun, but isn't that a bit extreme? There were a few mutterings of agreement with Mina's statement, across the class. Unfortunately, it is very much necessary. Just leaving her quirk active while it's out of control is extremely dangerous. Because as I said, if anyone touches her, they're dead, instantly. Aizawa reiterated. That seemed to shut down the objections, although everyone still looked a bit comfortable. Moving on. Next, we have Kei Midoriya. Aizawa said as the screen showed Kei. Pretty simple. Her quirk turns anyone who sees her eyes to stone for 24 hours. She has a visor to prevent this. If her visor is removed or damaged, replace it without looking into her eyes. And if someone does get turned into a statue, make sure not to break them. Zero raised his hand. Yes? Aizawa sighed. If you get turned to stone, and let's say, your arm falls off, and then you glue it back together, will you still have that arm? Zero asked. Yes, but it has to be put back perfectly. If even a small pebble is left off, it can have drastic consequences. Aizawa explained. So you better off just not risking it. Any more questions? Mineta raised his hand. You weren't supposed to have any more questions. Aizawa's eyebrow twitched. Yes, Mineta. What could you possibly have to ask? Are the snakes venomous? The great boy asked. Okay, that's a fair question. Aizawa thought. No. He saw some of the students breathe a sigh of relief. Alright. Moving on. Aizawa had a lot of kids to go through and he wanted to do it as fast as possible. Fu Midoriya and Kyosei Midoriya. You should already be familiar with them, right? The class nodded. Alright, just make sure to feed them absurd amounts of meat. And they'll be fine. Aizawa squinted. And also don't give them chocolate. It causes them to freak out, go berserk and temporarily die. Never thought I'd hear the phrase, temporarily die. Shinso chuckled at the absurdity of the two words being put together. Next, Kiba Midoriya. You should be familiar with her as well. Aizawa brought up an image of Kiba. Especially if you dash. Hail the queen! Shouted out Kirishima, Mina, Toru, and Kaminari. Watch her YouTube channel. Aizawa wanted to go to sleep so badly right now. Anyway, she needs human blood to live, so just make sure to feed her blood. And beware of her absurd strength. Next. The screen changed to a picture of Sansan. Alright, Sansan Midoriya, you already know her quirk and why it's dangerous. The only thing I need to tell you is the special neutralizing procedure. Aizawa said. There are special chemicals that, when introduced into her body, rendering her acid harmless. It also changes the color of her body to blue. This has to be done every 24 hours. Mina raised her hand. No, Mina, I don't know what it would do to you. No, I don't think you should try it and find out. Aizawa saw that question coming a mile away. And just as he thought, Mina took her hand back down. Okay, next is Kyoko Midoriya. Aizawa pressed the button to show Kyoko on screen. Her quirk allows her to see into the memories of others and change them as she pleases, so long as she's touching their heads. Although if a victim of her quirk is met with a concrete contradiction to those false memories, their real memories will return. While this quirk is not actively dangerous, its potential uses are rather intimidating, and the girl herself has absolutely no qualms about using her quirk frequently and freely, especially on people she doesn't like. Which includes everyone, not part of her family, who is also not Uraraka. So while we're there, we have to worry about some kid lurking around trying to make us think we're a completely different person. Kaminari asked. She's not that bad. Ochako tried to tell everyone. She's a bit rough around the edges, but she's an okay kid. And if you really want to get her to trust you, then just talk crap about Bakugo. Work for me. Screw you round face. Bakugo seethed. I exaggerated a bit, Aizawa admitted. Midoriya will keep her from doing anything too bold for the most part, and so long as she can't touch your head, she can't use her quirk. Man, guess I'll have to lock my door at night to keep the 6-year-old out. Toru giggled a bit at how stupid that sounded. Next, we have Shiruka Midoriya. Aizawa showed an image of Shiruku. Her quirk, as you can see, gives her the abilities and attributes of a spider, giving her super strength, speed, durability, the ability to shoot webs, climb walls, and she also can control other spiders around her. However, since spiders are cannibals, the only things she can eat are spiders and human flesh. No one could see it that well, but Toru was getting the heebie-jeebies. She had seen Shiruko on Kiba's stream, and while she knew she was a perfectly nice girl, Toru just didn't like spiders. They creeped her out. She would get over it because, well, she'd have to, seeing as she would be working with her now, and it would be extremely uncool to let something like this influence her opinion of a person, let alone a kid. But it wasn't going to be pleasant. Just keep her fed and everything should be fine. Next. The screen changed to an image of Yami. This is Yami Midoriya. You should already be familiar with him and his quirk. Honestly, you don't actually need to do anything to keep his quirk in check. In fact, he's actually extremely helpful. His grim act as both security and housekeeper. So if you need any help you can just use them. That being said, he could probably use a bit more emotional support. Lots of hugs. Got it. Mina nodded. It's gonna be weird to walk up to a demon ape and say, "Hey, can you carry this for me?" "Thanks." Zero laughed a bit. Alright, next is Fukunoko Midoriya. The screen showed a photo of Fuku. Ah, that poor girl looks so scared. Mina cooed. Well, that's what she normally looks like, at least that's what I'm told, Aizawa said. Anyway, her quirk is called Fear Gas. It allows her to release a gas that when inhaled, causes the victim to hallucinate their greatest fears, while also inhibiting logical brain functions, meaning you can't just get through it by telling yourself it's not real. It will make you think it's real. One of the people who inhaled it and was still able to speak full sentences afterward, described it as, being trapped in a nightmare you can't wake from. That got some squeamish looks of horror on the students' faces. Also, if she gets overly panicked, she will accidentally release a burst of this gas. Oh, and she gets very easily spooked. Very easily. Aizawa told them, only adding to the feeling of unease. However, due to her natural fear of pretty much everything, she stays in her room almost all the time, which is built to handle her quirk. And there are gas masks to make sure that you don't inhale any of the gas. Lastly, the gas disperses rather quickly and is pretty hard to miss. So unless you're being an idiot, you shouldn't inhale it. Sighs of relief rang out amongst the class. Okay, next is Kai Midoriya. Aizawa showed an image of Kai, and he could practically hear Bakugo's blood pressure rise. Oh hey, it's the kid that sat on Bakugo. Kaminari pointed out with a snicker. That was hilarious. You wanna fight, Spark Plug? I'll fucking kill you. Bakugo nearly jumped out of his seat and lunged at Kaminari. The fucking kid said that he was Deku's son. I was fucking in shock. That's fair, but it was pretty funny though. Mina giggled. This kid is actually very well behaved, and causes less property damage than you'd expect, Aizawa revealed. Really, you just have to accommodate for this massive size. Which isn't an easy task, but other than that this kid won't give you much trouble. That being said, even with as careful as he is, it's not impossible for him to sit on you, so be on your toes. Grrrr. Bakugo growled at the obvious jab at him. Next is Otoko Midoriya. When Aizawa showed the picture, he saw Shoji give the boy a look of pity. When touching him, his quirk sets anyone feeling a significant amount of fear on fire. Man, I've always wondered, why do quirks mess with people's appearances for no reason like this? Kaminari wondered out loud. Like, why does Tokoyami have a bird head? Why does Kota's quirk make him look like that? And why does Mina's acid shooting quirk make her look like a hot alien? Jiro turned to Mina, and raised her ear jack, silently asking, "You want me to stab him?" Mina shook her head and silently responded with, "Nah, that was more of a compliment than a perv moment." Jiro shrugged and brought her jack back down. "Well, to be fair, Kaminari, I can actually see how his appearance coordinates with his quirk," Momo responded. His appearance seems to be meant to inspire fear, hence activating his quirk. Which is unfortunate. If he doesn't want to be a hero with his quirk, then it's only a detriment. Making him frighten the people around him and setting fire to others by accident. Shoji deeply sympathized with this kid. Firstly, he looked even less human than him, and secondly, while his quirk did cause some people to fear or despise him, at least he never had to worry about it spontaneously setting people on fire. He's pretty gentle, so none of you should have any real reason to be afraid of him, Eraserhead noted. And if you are, get over it. Moving on. Next on the screen was, nothing. Many of the students looked at the screen confused, wondering why nothing was on screen. Okay, next is Midoriya, and we don't have any pictures of him. Aizawa massages his temple. The reason being is that he is the most elusive of all the children. His quirk allows him to enter some weird alternate dimension thing that lets him move around like a ghost. No one can see or hear him, and he can go through people and objects. This combined with his shy personality basically means that taking a picture of him is impossible. Honestly, you probably won't see him much if at all. Oh, is that a challenge? Mina's face broke out into a dangerous grin. I'm gonna friend the hell out of that kid. Me too. One ghost to another. Toru joked. Oh, also one more thing, anything besides himself that goes into his dimension thing, will almost immediately start to disintegrate, Aizawa added. You should have started with that. Shouted a good chunk of the class in unison. Aizawa shrugged. Anyway, moving on. Now we have Yonda Midoriya. She is deaf, however instead of hearing voices she can hear your thoughts, and instead of speaking normally her voice is telepathic. So instead of being a possible threat to our health, she is a constant threat to our privacy. Todoroki summarized. We just have to be careful about what we think around her, Kaminari suggested. Well, that won't be a problem for you. All she's gonna hear from your head is dead silence. Jiro teased. As Kaminari said, watch your thoughts, and you'll be fine, Aizawa confirmed. Getting close to the end. Netsu Midoriya. You all should remember him. Yeah, endeavor but small, Mina said. I wouldn't make that comparison, Todoroki added. Yeah, he has powerful uncontrollable flames. Fire is dangerous. Beware of fire. Aizawa looked at the clock. Clearly going faster so he could just get this done with. Anyway, moving on. Junken and Nara. These two are kids with very powerful transformation quirks. They can both transform into 10 unique forms that all have their own uses. Nara isn't really a problem, but her brother might transform into a murderous ghost for 10 minutes if he gets too freaked out, so be careful. Now that's all the kids, so does anyone have any questions? Pretty much everyone raised their hands. Great. Well, hopefully, those questions are answered in these. Aizawa leaned down and took out a stack of 19 booklets. These should have all the details you need. And if they don't, then just figure it out. Anyway, you can spend the rest of class doing self-study. I spent all night putting together these freaking books, so I'll be on the ground if anyone needs me. But do me a favor and don't need me. And with that, the extremely tired teacher collapsed onto the floor, snuggled into his sleeping bag, and promptly fell asleep. Well, guys, isn't this great? Ochako said, trying to get people in the helping spirit. It's like a working vacation. A working vacation with the risk of a horrible death. My favorite kind of vacation. Jiro said, looking very much not in the spirit. Ochako gave a soft glare and Jiro shrugged. Listen, I'm all about helping kids. But I'm not thrilled about a babysitting job where the penalty for messing up is death. But we're heroes. We're always risking our lives to help people. How is this any different? Ochako asked the class. Because the villains we fight aren't as dangerous as these kids? Ciro pointed out. I mean, I don't think anyone is against helping your boyfriend. I think we're just a bit unnerved about the high chance of death. Come on guys, they're just cute kids. Mina pointed out. Caretaker has been taking care of them for months, so they can't be that deadly. If Dekas managed to be around them that long and not die, you B-listers will be fine. Stop whining, Bakugo scoffed. I'm not happy about this taking away from our studies, but I'm more than willing to support a noble cause, Momo added with a sigh. To be fair, if we are getting paid as much as Aizawa alluded to, then all the time we lose doing this will be made up for with us not having to pick up part-time jobs. Tokoyami pointed out. Exactly. Not all of us are filthy rich like our privileged trio of Yamomo, Prez, and Mr. Cold Shoulder. Kaminari added. Privileged trio. Momo and Ida shouted out in shock and outrage, while Todoroki raised an eyebrow. It's not like we have much of a choice on the matter, Karo. Not that I mind. Azui jumped into the conversation. We should just all take the time to enjoy this experience while trying not to die. Just like how being a hero should be. Exactly. Ochako went up and hugged her froggy friend. Thanks, Sue. Bakugo rolled his eyes. TCH. I came to get away from stupid Deku and now I can't stop hearing about him. What a fucking joke.